Hey there, welcome to the next tutorial. Today we're going to take a look at the hub bearings, cones, and how to adjust them. Now here I have a wheel of my friend's bike, front wheel, and I already removed the locking nuts here. Oops, okay, so took them off. Now the problem that he has is after he rides a while, the axle starts becoming loose and it starts rattling and making this horrific noise. Now this is bad for two reasons. Number one, as I said, it makes a horrific noise. The other reason is it wears out the hub much faster. I mean, in terms of properly adjusted hub versus a loose or too tight of a hub, it might be even 10 times faster. So this might, this has already lasted about 5 or 6 years before he actually developed this problem. And if it had been loose from day one, it might have not survived the first season. Okay, so this is an open ball bearing hub, and it has an axle that runs through the entire hub from here to here. It has a lock nut on either end, okay? Cone nut, I guess, on this side and on this side. Now, give me 1 second and I'll show you what it is. So I got a different hub from my warehouse, and I removed the axle, and as you can see we have some ball bearings in them with grease and a dust separator. Okay, so this is what the hub looks inside, and basically it looks the exact same way in this hub, in the front wheel hub. Now this is a hub cone. I hope you can see that there's a bit of a radius on this side, and that is actually what sits against the bearings and rotates. So when we put it together as such, you can actually see that it runs on itself. This is how most open ball bearing wheels are set up. So you have the cone nut here, or the bearing nut here, and you have the lock nut on the outside. Okay, let me put this away. Now, how you adjust this is you usually take one side, and what you do is you get a specific or a thin wrench. This is a hub bearing nut wrench, and these come in two specific sizes. It's 13 millimeters and 15 millimeters. Now, I'm not sure what they call them in the States and Canada, but I know that Park Tools sells them as hub cone wrenches. So you can check out the website and see what they have on offer. But this is the 15 millimeter size. This is the 13 millimeter size, and front wheels usually have 13 millimeter wrench flats, and rear hubs have 15 millimeter wrench flats. This is because the rear wheel takes a bigger load and has bigger, usually again, has bigger bearings and bigger bearing cones. Okay, so we fixed one side. Let me get my other wrench, 1 second. And so let's recap. The front bearing cones have usually 13 millimeter wrenches, thin ones. The rear hubs have 15 millimeter wrenches, and the thin ones. Now the lock nuts can be several different sizes. I believe this is a 17 millimeter one, but I've seen 15, 16, even 14 millimeter ones, and they vary a lot. Thankfully, the hub cones are usually an industry standard, but the lock nuts can be different sizes. So what you do is you take you insert the thin wrench on the hub cone as such, and you hold it. And what you do is you take the wrench, put it on the lock nut, and actually hold this and try to tighten the lock nut on top of the hub, on the bearing cone nut. So, okay, as such, it's quite nice and tight already. And what this does is this makes your adjustment infinitely more easy, because you've already secured one side, so you only have to adjust technically on one side. So it's not like you adjust from here, then you turn it over, or adjust from the other side. You adjust this side and then only work on the other side. Now this works in 9 out of the 10 cases that come into the shop. So I always recommend securing one side first, then turning the wheel over, and then working on the other side. Okay, let me turn the wheel over. Such. Let me check if we're still in the shot. Oh, not even close. Okay, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna open these up. Okay, so this can be completely loose initially. And what you do now is you take the axle and try to rotate it with a finger. Right now I can sort of feel that it's running pretty good. It's not snagging on anything, it's running quite well. And it's not making this noise like it's trying to jam on the bearings. If it turns like as such, you have the bearing cone adjusters are way too tight, so you have to loosen them. But right now it feels pretty good. So the other thing you can do is you can hold the rim of the bike and try to wiggle the axle towards you and away from you to check if it's loose. This again seems very nice. So as we already fixed one side, what we do now is we take the bearing cone adjustment wrench. Okay. Now we hold this in place, and now we have to turn the lock nut. Now we don't want the axle nor the bearing cone to move. We only want to secure the lock nut on top of the bearing cone. Okay, as you can see, it already moves slightly. So let's see what happens when we tighten it. Okay. Okay. So I tightened it, and as you can see, the lock nut was actually catching on the axle, and it slightly unscrewed the or loosened the bearing cone. And you know, it still runs pretty good, and there's almost no looseness. Okay, so that's actually pretty good. We did good on that one. But for example, let me do another scenario. So let's loosen this again, and I'm going to tighten this very, very, very tight. Okay, so you accidentally tightened your bearing adjustment cones so much that it's barely moving. I mean, I'm really having to put in a lot of strength to turn it. Okay, so what you do then is you take the wrench again. You hold this as such, and what you do is instead of turning the lock nut now, you actually fix the lock nut, okay? So if the bearings are too tight, you loosen one side, you this time fix the lock nut and start turning the adjustment cone so you loosen it slightly, okay? So loosen it this much. Okay, let's try again. Alright, much better. I can already turn it, but you can still hear it. Okay, this means that it's still slightly too tight, so we'll adjust it a little bit more. Again, you fix the lock nut on the top and you loosen the hub cone on the bottom. So let's try it. Okay. Okay, this actually feels pretty good. It's still slightly too tight, but this is nowhere tight enough where it'll actually eat away at your bearings and stuff. So let's recap. To easily adjust your hub cone bearing. So let's recap. To easily adjust your front or rear wheel hub open bearing cones, you initially fix one side by taking the thin wrench and taking the thick wrench and adjusting it so the lock nut and the hub cone adjuster are really tight against each other, okay? Then you flip the wheel over, and if the bearings are too loose, you fix the hub cone adjuster. You twist, you try to screw the hub cone adjuster slightly in so it tightens up everything, and then you fix the hub cone adjuster and you turn the lock nut onto the hub cone adjuster, okay? Now if your bearings are way too tight, you do it the other way. You fix the top lock nut and you try to loosen the hub cone adjuster, okay? So to tighten it, you fix the hub cone adjuster. To loosen it, you fix the lock nut, okay? So that's the basic difference. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions or problems, just send me a hoot or a message and I'll try to help. Thank you very much for watching, and if you liked it, you can always subscribe and like the video. Thanks again. Bye bye.